of Success Secrets Exposed, where we have intimate conversations with today's thought leaders, change makers, and disruptors to bring you tools and strategies and insightful perspectives on both personal and business growth, revealing the humanness of success and challenge. For those that are new to the episode and new to the show, I'm Sally A. Curtis from Monetize Your Content. We're a done-for-you marketing agency that works with brilliant individuals to help them monetize their existing content. What we're best known for is turning books into 2 years' worth of social media posts. We help you save time, maximize your assets, and become the obvious expert, sought after and sold out with a lasting legacy. But today, a more important topic for you all, we are going to be talking about past lives and their role in whole self healing. And I have a very, very special guest today, Jeannine Kim, and we're going to be sharing her insights. Now, she's been offering healing wisdom and guidance to clients worldwide for 3 decades. As an intuitive reader, a 5D astrologer, a medium, a yogi, a teacher, a writer, and author. And her main passion is supporting others in their evolutionary journey into their whole self, deep and transformational. And I'm going to ask, who's had repeating patterns even though that you've worked on them, right? We all have. So one of Jeannine's understandings is after 3 decades of that professional healing work, she's learnt to understand that witnessing and working with our past lives is the missing piece, or that missing link that helps to ease the mind, release that deeper holding within our body and our emotions. And she says that being present with the greatest awareness is one of the most potent and important things we can do for our ongoing healing journey. So please welcome to the stage, Jeannine Kim. Here we go. Good evening to you. How are you?
Hi, Sally. Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited to talk with you about multiple topics in this space today.
Me too.
Can I ask you just to start with a little bit of your backstory as to how you've got to where you are and why you do what you do?
I would love to share that. Well, before I was working as a psychic medium professionally, I was an IPO trader. I was in the financial industry for a good 10 years in Chicago, Series 7, Series 63. And even though that speaks to my professional life, that's when I really started brewing consciously the work that I needed to kind of balance. You could only imagine that kind of a world, right? Like still, but in the 90s, just imagine it. And so what I needed to balance myself was yoga, massage. I'm a sensitive being by nature, so certain foods. And it really wasn't out then, but through my own work, and I had some health issues, and then just the stress and anxiety of where I worked called me to do these things on my time off. And so I've been intuitive my whole life, but I kind of tucked it away as a little girl and even into my 20s, but I was always secretly, curious about it. So during the 90s, I started to pick up information about how, eating organic, which really wasn't a thing in the 90s. Seeking that kind of food out, that kind of stuff to put on my skin, because I'm a redhead by nature and I'm very sensitive. I was doing yoga on the side and getting body work. And again, I was just seeing how those alone brought me to a more true place within myself. And then while this is brewing and going on the inside, and reading these delicious books from Shirley MacLaine and, Gary Zukov and all these amazing people who were like thought leaders, right?
Yeah.
I was blossoming, and it was just expanding so much on the inside. I could no longer tolerate the life that I was in, the relationships I had. So I moved from Chicago to San Diego and ended up leaving that financial industry.
Wow.
And not looking back, I started to go to school at night for a massage therapist, and I became Reiki trained in late 90s, early 2000s. And That was it. I got my nose pierced, tattoo, never looked back, and went full speed ahead into healing work. Back then you weren't allowed to have those things when you worked. So I thought for
Yeah,
sure that would keep me away in case I got weak and wanted to come back again, away from my truth. But
yeah,
I wouldn't, what if I had to, fine. There's really not a point of weakness. Just you got to still sort it out. But I didn't look back, and now it's been the greatest journey of my life.
yeah. Just having a play around, as I said, on your website, and just looking at all of the credentials and all of the learning that you've done was mind-boggling, to say the least. It's been extensive, and obviously it has been that incredible journey for you to bring you to the work that you're doing now. Especially in this space of this, what I'm going to call that really deep transformational work that we've become aware of the need of, if that
Right.
makes sense, in the last couple of years with everything that's
Mhm.
gone on. There's a lot of people that you hear awakening, or, sort of saying, oh, I wasn't spiritual, but I might be a little bit now. I'm hearing that a lot with different people in
Thank you.
conversations in coffee shops and things. So it's interesting. Now, one of the things I also said to you when we got on on this morning was this scenario around repeating patterns, and I'm just going to
Mhm.
reference the coffee shop again, because I was recently in a coffee shop with my number of different girlfriends, and there was a couple of us. We were talking about some of our work that we've been doing, and we all did not that repeating pattern again. We all rolled our eyes because we're all going,
Right.
oh, not that again, that lesson. And there was a few swear words and a few other things in there as well.
Oh,
So,
right.
can you share with us your journey as it relates to those repeating patterns and the discoveries that you've had? Because I think everyone can relate to that deja vu sort of, oh my God, I've worked on this. Why is this coming back up again? I'll call it a frustration. You might
Yes.
be a tap or something, but it's, yeah.
Oh, I've had plenty of those. And the funny thing is when people ask me or imagine me being a healer or being psychic, oftentimes I find that they imagine that once you reach that place, you don't have problems anymore. You don't, what's coming, so you don't have to worry about it, or you don't get sick anymore. And what I love to speak to, just generally speaking, first off, in regards to healing patterns, is that it's very, very much like nature. It's very seasonal. Once you get a go around and learn and integrate and incorporate, it comes around again. It's almost like cooking. Like if you went to Cordon Bleu and received your chef certificate and you were like the best, would you stop learning different no, you would come around again. And right. And so I've had repeated patterns with relationships, it happened actually with work. When I was in the financial industry, I kept getting let go of in my jobs, or they wouldn't promote me, so I had to look for another job. And I was always, working the best, and I would train people underneath me, and they would still let me go. And then every time that went around, finally at one point, I'm like, maybe I'm just not supposed to be here. But the way
Yeah.
right, and look at, yeah, it was right. But here it is. And I don't think that we're ready until we're ready. And these
Mm,
layers, if we just change our thinking around them,
mm,
meaning instead of looking at it and saying, oh, I shouldn't have that, I'm not going to look at it, I'm going to law of attraction that away, or I'm going to law of resonance that away, I say to myself, I know there's a place for that, but
mm,
I feel like if we continue on that path of looking the other way,
mm,
it's just going to keep coming back until we do deal.
mm,
So shifting the new paradigm is really about shifting our belief around those things,
mm.
being excited if we can, dare I say, if we can, around the charges, the triggers, the repeats, and looking at it and saying, you know what is in this for me?
Mm,
Wanting it. Those of us on the spiritual journey, we say we want to grow. We say we want to explore and expand. If it shows up again, it's because you're learning it at
mm,
a deeper layer.
mm.
And I call that a spiritual sommelier. So we all know what a master sommelier is,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So when they first taste wine, I'm sure when they're first learning, everything is just kind of basic. I don't know about you, but I'm just, I drink it. I'm like red, white, like I don't know. And
Yeah.
they can go so deep, but they have to go over again and again
Mm,
and
mm,
again. So as to learn the subtleties and the nuances
true.
of what that's all about. And then they become the master of it. So what if we shifted our perspective to that? Like, oh, it's coming around again because I could go deeper with this.
Mm,
Then we wouldn't have like a heaping pile of shame, right? When we're trying to also grow,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So it's actually an opportunity versus a burden, isn't it, really?
That's a great way to look at it. It truly,
Mm,
truly is. And I
mm,
I feel like just getting to the crux of it and having the paradigm shift in our mind
mm.
about the
To
fact
open
that
it.
it's even showing up
Mm,
allows us to just move with it way easier. It
mm,
goes deeper, it unwinds more.
mm.
And the flip side of those patterns are our masteries. It's
Yes.
almost like they're nestled into like one little, nut, one little box. And we
Mm,
did that purposefully, I feel.
mm,
So we would go to those things. We can't have one without the other. Just
mm.
can't.
Which is as cyclic, as you said, and seasonal and part of a journey, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So when people are coming to you and we all have experienced the those repeating patterns, and we're working through them, just so the audience understands what's going on for them, like I am now through this conversation. What are the things that come up, the frustrations? What are the things that they can notice in themselves that they can now be aware of, and they can switch and flip their thinking? So for me, it was, turning it from a burden from a frustration into oh, this is an opportunity. Let's be excited and let's explore and discover. They're all words that I love. Happy to do those sorts of things.
Right.
So what are some of the, I suppose, common words or language that your clients use that will just help expand on that for the audience?
Well, what a great way to be with that is to allow ourselves, first of all, to just let the feeling take us over
Mm,
in a safe space, in a
mm,
safe environment. And most often, feeling is the one thing that we want to run away from.
oh,
And
yeah.
I understand that if it's not a safe environment, you know what I mean? We might want to
Mm,
put those feelings on the back burner, or, if it's not some place that we could have this exploration, even for a moment, we want to earmark it. But I
mm,
always say, come back later.
mm,
Make a commitment to have, it's really about a relationship to yourself.
mm,
And there's this aspect that I love to say is that we have these four bodies, and our four bodies are our babies.
mm,
So, do you have a favorite baby, a least favorite baby? And the bodies are spiritual body, mental body,
mm,
emotional body, and physical body. So, do you have a favorite? Do you have a least favorite?
mm,
When a repeating pattern comes up, do one of those bodies try to tell you something? But you're like, no, not now. Shh, not now. We got to keep going.
yeah.
But can you just sit for a moment and create space for each and every one of those to really have something to say about what's coming up for you?
Mm,
And when you can just pause in the moment, go deep and feel, and it starts to leave your system, we grow a greater, more stabilized nervous system capacity
mm.
as well. Yeah.
Wow. And that, gosh, yeah, that makes sense, because when you break it down into the four bodies, there is one that'll, in my case, I can sort of feel one that comes up and actually has a little, oh, I'll just mention this to you. And then there's the one that I'll go, yeah, I heard you, but we'll just move you over there at the moment because I'm over here, because of being more in for me at this time of year, it's that fast paced thing. So, when something's trying to slow you down, it's just, yeah, later. So it is interesting when you break it down into those bodies, as you were explaining it to me. It actually enabled me to actually see it, because I could I could segregate it almost to go, oh yeah, I've had those experience. So yes, I understand that. And then you can sort of bring the collective back together by the sounds of things. Would that be right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And And this is oftentimes why the patterning will continue so strongly, and we feel those repeated patterns with that charge of like, oh, it's because our mindset of welcoming it may be a little bit different. We don't like the way it feels, of course.
Yeah.
And then secondly is that there's more work to be done there. It's coming up again because sure, the mind is like, oh yeah, this is great, let's do this. But the body is like, oh my gosh, do I have to do this again? Really? You're gonna like pull me through this?
Yeah.
Don't I get a say in it? And yet when we do answer the call to all 4 aspects of ourself, it's alignment. It's nervous system regulation. And when that happens, we are truly being the change we wish to see in the world. And there may be some rollouts of what we have built that just no longer work for us. So instead of like chasing a remedy for it, we just landed in it. We might have to make some hard choices to shift our environment or the relationships. But I'll tell you, it's the fastest way to truth, the fastest way to healing.
And
Is
when
by
you're
listening to yourself.
sorry, and when you have that experience for yourself, it also ripples out into the other people and those sorts of things around you as we're with that awareness as well.
Absolutely, because everything is energy first. And so we're all pinging a frequency, and that's where law of attraction comes in by default. We just don't want to go there with the mind, but yeah.
Yeah. Now there's a couple of words you've just said then, and the pinging of that energy. So explore that for us, because there's a concept there that's very resonant. Yeah.
Well, you probably, no doubt you know this, like 95% of what we create in this world comes from the subconscious realm. That's like psychology 101. It's in that space, 90 to 95%. And so I think, well, then let's go there. Let's go to the subconscious. And so when I read people, majority of the time my eyes are closed. I don't need to be that way, but I see people as like a piece of energy
being.
right? And so they're pinging like a submarine underwater. And so even if we're just looking at the good stuff, the dark stuff, the dark matters, name of my book, is pings from back here constantly. So let's go there first. Let's listen to the pinging. Let's change that frequency by answering the call to some needs that have not been met, maybe for lifetimes even. Yeah. And then it shifts our frequency altogether.
Together from there. So there's a couple of things there we're going to bridge it into. You've mentioned your book that's coming out in the new year, Dark Matter, and you've also mentioned science a couple of times. So I know you do a lot of work as it relates to the bridge between science and spirituality. So I'd love you to explore and explain a little bit of the work that you do in that space. And this comes back to your extensive credentials and all of the learning and training and the relationships that you've built in this space. So I'd love you to share a little bit about that, and then perhaps touch on the retreats, the new retreats that you're doing as well. And then we can circle back to Dark Matter.
Wonderful. Well, I do my book coming out. It's Dark Matter, and I don't have the subtitle yet. It's almost there, but it refers to the importance of going to that dark within us. Most people, spirituality, we tend to think go to the light. And to me, that is that 5% of our consciousness. It's a given. But 95%, it's like we're leaving out the good stuff. And to me, dark doesn't mean bad, because there is a spectrum of frequency within that. Dark is also the womb. It's the point of creation. It's the voids in outer space that things are birthed from. So it's not as bad as we tend to believe that to be. And then I've been working with Dr. Jeffrey Tarrant, and he has a book that just came out called Becoming Psychic, Lessons from the Minds of Healers, Psychics, and Mediums, that him and I was one of the many that he worked with, some of the psychics in there. And him and I are working on a retreat in March. And he comes over, and what he does is he invents these amazing machines and works with people and maps your brain. So when I do my reading, and on my website, you could see a picture of my brain when I was in a group session, the theta waves that kind of kick in, and he shows what parts of the brain turn on, what parts turn off. And this is not my department. Jeff's the master of it. So I just listen to him like, oh, that's so cool. And
Yeah.
so, but he maps it all out. And then he knows that when I get into a certain state, he's like, oh, this part of your brain turns on. And he's also very masterful in meditation and martial arts. So he shows the certain types of meditations that could activate these
Mm,
parts of the brain, and certain machines that he's creating to turn on those parts of the brain. And then since I've been doing this work, because I've been this way my whole life,
mm,
um, I learned how to do without machines. So I show them how we could sustain it, how once we get there, how we could live. To me, we're all meant to have this greater access, this greater
mm,
alignment, this greater intuitive ability. I'm just the canary in the coal mine. So Jeff and I work together in showing people how to access their true inherent psychic ability,
yeah.
where they could see it in the brain, because it makes us feel better sometimes when we see that,
Yes.
and what we could do to keep it that way. So
Yeah, beautiful. I'm glad you shared about the image of the brain on your website, because I spotted that as well. And one of my speaker buddies is recovering, has recovered, depending on
right.
which way you want to look at that, from a brain injury. And as he's been doing his additional learning and going through that process, they've from a study with one of the universities, they've been actually mapping the brain, his brain, through that process, and you can actually, what fascinates me is you can
Mhm.
actually see the change and the growth and the new the reactivation of areas that weren't activated before within his brain. So it's just it's extraordinary. And then when you switch it on in the levels that you're talking about through meditation and those sorts of things, it's that next level again. So that's where science meets growth, and science meets the spirituality growth elements are just fascinating, especially when, as you said, you can sort of see it and you get comfort in that, where you have a deeper aha moment, because it's backed up by science if you're more skewed to that way as well.
Right. It gives people that comfort.
Comfort, yeah. Now, there's something else that you said, and I think this reflects between the light and the dark, that fascinated me when I was reading through our notes, and that was a comment, and I might not phrase this quite correctly, but it was to do the bottom of your to-do list first. So please explain.
I love it. Yeah, it's that actually came to me because I'm an astrologer as well.
Yeah.
One time when I was channeling something during the scorpionic time of the year. All you Scorpions, you know what I'm talking about. I love me some Scorpio. But Pluto, Scorpio, the god of the underworld. And typically, all of us have that somewhere in our chart. It's an archetype. It's an energy that we can work with.
Mm,
And so what Scorpio says, imagine he's the god of the underworld. So he's down here looking up, and you put all this stuff on your to-do list, and inevitably, I mean, I got that too. You're like, yeah, this is the first thing I'm going to do. And then you're like, no, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to bump it down a couple notches. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then
cherry
something
pick, yeah.
always lands down there. But, we have these opportunities, these moments that call us on it, those repeating patterns. And
Mhm,
they're like, these few things keep adding up at the bottom of your list all the time. They're always down there. And so what I love to say is, honestly, within yourself, what lands down there all the time? Flip it. Do those first.
mm,
Do those first. And again, watch how you start to unravel some deeper trauma within your
mm,
system.
mm.
Just get those done.
Thank you. I did find that fascinating, and I did look at my book with my to-do list. Went, yes, I was going through it. So, yeah, I thought that was such an interesting concept, and I wanted to know where you were going to take it, which was very similar to where I thought, which was yeah, those two might be linked somewhere along the line in my case, anyway. Yeah. So
Well, and you know what I find happen, just a little side note, is
yeah,
that oftentimes, so subconsciously, there's that word again. We don't want to get to the bottom of that list. We keep pushing that off, moving it around. So we add things to the top of the list that we don't really need to do anyway. So
mm,
it's almost like we're just, this is really about a practice of being mindful of our energy. Like,
mm,
what are we doing with our life force energy?
Mm,
And if we get to those core systemic issues, oh my gosh, the quietness that ensues in our
mm,
nervous system, in our soul, and our spirit. Yeah.
mm. So let's dig into that, because that's, I think, is another area where people are asking questions and are seeking more support and help around. Is I'm going to call it energy management.
Right.
So we've just talked about sort of that level of managing the energy of the to-do list. So in my case, that thing that's gone from page to page to page that I know I need to do, that I really don't want to, but if I keep seeing it, and I get the, oh yeah, that, oh yeah, that. But that's not necessarily an inspiring space, because
Right.
to me it feels like a deflation. It's on that. Oh, there
Yeah.
it is. It's on that list
Right.
again. It's on that list again. It's on that list again. It's not. It's not empowered. It's not energetic. It's not big. It's not
Right.
moving. So
Hmm.
we've talked about the to-do list. So what are other ways that people can start to become more conscious of managing their energy, because especially this time of year, we're getting to the end of the year. Many of us have had big years, and we're just feeling tired and all those sorts of things. What are little tips that you can provide that can help us manage the energy better? And I dare say some of it's probably going to tie into trusting your instinct, trusting your gut. So over to you.
Exactly. So, and then how do we trust that gut?
Correct. Thank you.
It's knowing the voice of our gut. It's
Mm,
creating a relationship in here first. And there's something on my website I call sacred clearing.
mhm,
And I could probably channel that over to you, and maybe, we could share it, or people
mm,
could hop on over. And when we do this sacred clearing, it's about doing this kind of practice and work, not when we're in the midst of something triggering, but in the moments when we're not, because we want to know who our baseline energy is. So, example,
mm,
you wake up in the morning, you do this clearing, you do this sacred clearing. Then you do it in the middle of the afternoon. Then you do it at night before bed. You don't have to sit in a room with candles. This is what I invite people at the grocery, right? You're in front of the apples. You just do a quick little,
yeah.
or my kids' taekwondo. I'm doing it there in my car, when you go to the bathroom and doing the dishes, whenever. You come to know yourself. And
Mm,
then when you start to clear your own energy, I call it energetic hygiene, then you start to
mm,
feel other people and situations, what you see on, the internet or whatever, how it starts to adjust your feelings.
mm,
And instead of kind of moving around through life, then just doing the same old habituated routines, you feel into yourself. You're like, ooh, last time I talked to so and so, it didn't feel quite right.
yeah.
It really threw me off. And so then you start to consider, do I want to? Do I want to go on that Facebook page? It doesn't feel good.
Mm,
These are things, we have to be accountable for these bigger truths that are coming up, but we get to do it one little bite at a time. So
yes.
my invitation is, just do it once a day.
Mm,
And after you clear, check in with the four babies, the four bodies.
mm,
Oh, emotional body, you didn't like that. Physical body, you didn't like it. And, get those ironed out. And when you go to that greater truth in every moment, those are absolutely little things that we can do that give us more energy,
mm,
because we're not kind of going against the grain of ourself any longer.
yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And with that, and it is from just watching your mannerisms and those sorts of things, it is just that, I'm going to call it, from my perspective, like those internal check-ins. You're just sort of doing that
Yes.
quick little scan or check-in,
Yes.
and just getting into the noticing.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know it's hard. And I know that we all have a life. I get it. And I know that our lives are structured from the old nervous system. But once we start settling in, we're like, we have to make some changes. Maybe it's the bottom of that list that we didn't want to go to. But this is the real healing work. This is what I think you've been saying the whole time, is so many people now are saying, hey, all this other stuff, it isn't working. This is what I see with my clients.
Mm,
It works for a moment, but it doesn't sustain.
yeah, it's that sustainability. Yeah.
It's the little stuff. It's like spiritual endurance. We can't just like climb up the mountain and have all this capacity.
Yeah,
We
go,
got to do a
woo. Yeah.
little bit daily, little bit day by day, and then we're growing it. It's like
Yeah.
brushing your teeth. You
Yeah,
you don't
as a
every day.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that continuous practice. Yeah, I do love the the analogy of the being on the mountaintop and going woohoo. Reminds me of another little saying that I said that I remember. Another quote that is, "You can't stand on a mountaintop and expect fried chicken to fly in with your mouth. You can't stand on a mountaintop with your mouth open and expect fried chicken to fly in."
Right.
It's like, oh,
Right.
yeah,
Okay, it's true. No, that's exactly it. No, it's the work, and I feel like people are getting ready for it. They're
yeah,
really, really, really ready for it because, again, the current paradigm is about that one thing that's going to heal everything. And I often say the end game is that there is no end game.
yes. Thank you. I wanted to explore that with you. Yeah. So with that, there is no end game scenario, and with all the
Right.
types of work that you do, and the types of people that you work with, and the I suppose the commonalities of some of the work that people are looking for that are opening up and ready. What's, I suppose, the invitations that you have for those people? What are the different invitations or offers and ways in which you can assist people with that growth?
I do. You mean in regards to the sessions that I offer?
The sessions and yeah, absolutely.
In the work. So
Yeah.
I offer regular intuitive sessions. I'm a medium as well. So I speak
Mm,
to people who past astrology really shows us a lot of how we're built on the inside.
mm.
And some of my favorite work is past life work. I have
Yes.
one-on-one mentoring work that I do, my Into the Mystic. I have a few programs there, and Ancestral Alchemy, where we clear out even the ancestral energy lines. So, but the Into the Mystic work is really, to me, the foundation of coming to know thyself,
Yeah.
in the greatest way, and the tools that we could use on a daily basis. When those patterns repeat, we
Mm,
will know exactly where they came from, because I find the name of the individual, the place, the story,
yeah.
and we work with that so you have something in hand when it shows up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. So it's very, very in depth by the sounds of that.
Very in depth.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I did sort of look at that and thought, oh well, but let's find out,
Mhm.
explore that a little bit. Being so curious. Now,
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about Dark Matter, the book. Obviously, the book's is in itself has been a journey from some of the touch points that you've talked about today, and from when we spoke before as well. So, tell us about the journey of the book and its long-term end game as it relates to what you're bringing to the world.
Thank you. Well, it was really birthed from all the work that I do, in that every time I would work with clients, my mentoring clients in particular, I find I kept saying the same thing, about how what past lives do, and how our ability to access them in a certain way
Mm,
allows for a total paradigm shift inside of us, a way that we could be with our healing journey outside of just the tools here. It really kind of cements it all together. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to start. I would just take notes and channel. And I kept saying the same thing. I'm like, that's it. I got to put this book out. And because to me, again, the other aspect of the healing journey is that most people believe that the highest spiritual aspect of self is the spiritual lightness. And
mm,
to me, I'm like, that's a piece of it.
yeah.
I don't have that experience. And it's, again, sometimes you say dark, people think, oh my gosh, you're a dark witch or dark whatever. No, there's, yin is very cool, yin and yang. It is
Yeah.
that dark. It is the essence of creation. And
Mm,
so if we keep leaving it behind, we miss it. And so my book goes really deep on that. And it talks about sustainable ways that we could work with the dark spaces within us, and bring
mm.
it all to the light. It's Carl Jung, working with the shadow.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think the analogy that you talk about there of, there's just, everyone wants to get to the peak, the top of the iceberg,
Mhm. Right.
the light, but there's all of this stuff underneath that is, as you said, is good stuff, which is the solid foundation in which the tip of the iceberg is upon.
Completely. That's a great way to look at it. And it is what we're seeing. Like
Mm,
we are here seeing other, because what other represents, my belief and my understanding is that it represents pieces of us that we don't want to touch on the inside here.
mm,
I mean, this is why we're even incarnated.
Yeah.
from my energetic perspective and the work that I've done, is
Yeah.
to be with it so we could understand it, because if it was in here, we wouldn't go. It would be so at the bottom of the list, we wouldn't look. So
Yeah.
it keeps
Yeah.
popping up in front of our faces. So that is the dark matter. And when we could come to understand that, not forgive, I don't use that word, understand it, forgiveness is the byproduct, and integration as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
More
comes
fulfillment.
back to the learning. It comes back to your the introduction where you talk about the understanding, the witnessing, and then the working with
Yes.
to bring it all together for that the greater impact for self and others, by the sounds of things. Yeah.
It is. And even when you said that, like the shift in the feeling, like, okay, I could sit in the center and I wait for things to come up now. And
Mm,
I'm going to work with it. And I'm still going to feel it. And I'm still going to feel like I don't like the way this feels. But you'll have a different handle on it, a different
mm,
balance point, a different grip. And
mm.
and then you're not afraid of so much. And there's just such an empowerment in that. It's really wonderful to watch people get that grip.
Thing.
Yeah.
And you've just touched on a word there, which I think has a lot of energy and meaning for lots of people. And I've just been, funnily enough, writing about the fear in my realm to my audience. And when we mention the word fear, and an individual puts their own labels on top of that and makes it into that big thing, fear does have a very large
Mhm.
energy, but it's the energy that we're actually putting to it. It's
I
with that,
love it.
yeah.
Completely. Absolutely. And I just did a channel a few weeks ago in my tribe. You could see it on my podcast page, but oh no, actually it's in my midweek episodes that are on YouTube and Spotify now. It's called Fear the Great Messenger.
Oh, lovely. I'll have a look at that. Yep, for you.
It's a little 20-minute midweek channel, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that's such a great place. Well, from my experience, that's a great place to explore. I've always, a bit of an adrenaline junkie. Love pushing boundaries. Go and jump out of planes, go and race cars, do crazy stuff.
Right.
To frighten myself and then tell great frightening stories to people that they're frightened, telling them that those stories. That's just one of my weird quirks. But then there's that. Then there's a difference. There's courage facing those outwardly brave or insane
Right.
scenarios, but there's a different level of courage of facing those fears that we didn't realize we had, and then we do realize we have them and they've just come up, and then as you say, embracing that fear and then exploring it further.
Right. And there's such a biological, physiological effect. Of course, it's kind of too deep to get into today, but when
Yeah.
we do any type of somatic nervous system healing work, that's rewiring our nervous system to a
Mm,
blueprint that is more peaceful and balanced.
mm,
And I use that nervous system healing along with my past life work, because then it's easy to know that you're the medicine in this moment. You have a
mm,
place to put the origin of that story. So then when the pattern does show up again and you want to reset your nervous system,
mm.
you can say, oh, that's where it came from. And you have a little bit more of a handle on it. It doesn't feel super overwhelming.
And as you said, it loosens that grip. So what I've
Right.
learned in our conversation today is, and I love that blueprint. The blueprint of peace aspect, and where that's resonated for me. That blueprint of peace is when you've got that level of understanding and acceptance of all of the dark matter, of the fears, and of the repeating patterns that come up. There is, I can feel that reset where the grip loosens,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you just have that. So
Yeah.
if you're having those layers of where that is sort of getting deeper, stronger,
Right.
then you do get to get to a deeper place of peace, and that obviously then transmutes into the way in which the body tracks itself and the science behind the nervous system, etc.
I love that. So beautifully put, Sally. Exactly. It changes our pathology. It changes the
Yeah,
choices we make and the things we do. Yeah. That's how
beautiful.
deep it is for sure.
Yeah, and people can obviously reach out to you via your website. Is that the best place for people to connect with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
JeannineKim.com.
Beautiful. And I'm just going to spell it. It's JeanninineKim.com for those people that want to connect with Jeannine and have a deeper conversation. So as we get towards the end of the show, because great conversations go really, really fast, do you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share at all? Do you have any favorite one-liner? I know
I do. I have a one-liner that actually just came up this week, is to have faith in fate.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, fate is the hand of God, that, or all that is nature, that is way bigger than our control, but having faith in where that takes you. And then one of my all-time favorite quotes, and you and I were chatting about this at first, was, the universe is full of magical things patiently waiting for our wits to grow sharper.
Oh, love that one.
I think that's Yeats. I
Yeah,
think that's Yeats. Yeah.
That gave me goosebumps again. Can I ask you to repeat that one, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me get back. The universe is full of magical things patiently waiting for our wits to grow sharper.
Beautiful. So the invitation very clearly is, if you are waiting for your wits to get sharper and you want to fast track, for those that like fast pace like me, there's an opportunity to certainly connect and explore, discover, uncover, find courage and find your blueprint of peace and just that alignment within the body. Any closing words from you? Any additional wisdom, anything further that you haven't yet said that you'd love to share with the audience?
Don't be afraid of the empty inside of you. My psychic work, I say, get empty and trust. And it's having a relationship with empty, believe it or not, which can be scary. A lot of stuff comes up into that empty space, but having the relationship with empty will never steer you wrong. It may change your life. Things may fall away, but it'll be the greatest truth you've ever had. So trust what goes on the inside. Have that vertical existence be your priority versus the horizontal, and watch what unfolds.
And what I felt with that, the empty is flow, because from when something's empty, things can flow in and out of it, whereas when it's full, it's stuck. Yeah. Completely.
I love that.
Well, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing so much with us. So just to recap for those of all of the little nuggets that have actually come out of the show, because my head is spinning and I've got lots of little scribble notes underneath. I've written down personally, fear is the message. I love that. The blueprint of peace and being empty to allow the exploration and the unfolding and the opportunities, because we're rephrasing those things into opportunities now, has been my lessons. Obviously, as a recap, as it relates to opportunities for the audience, there's the retreat coming up in March with your Dr. friend Carl, have I got that right?
Dr. Jeffrey Tarrant, yes, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, March 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Beautiful. And that's a real blend of that science and spirituality. And then you've got your Dark Matter book coming out in the new year, and people can find more about that on your website at this
point. On my website, right, under the shop, correct.
Under the shop, beautiful. So again, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lots of great insights to explore for all of us, especially as it relates to repeating patterns and becoming, having that deeper transformational change that we're all seeking and all growing into. So again, Jeannine, thank you so much for sharing so much with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. I so appreciate your platform, and thank everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Until we see you again next time on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye.